Magazine and Stef Kight, reporter for Axios. Ladies, with a good day to you both. Jay, that tweet from the president calling on Democrats to come to the negotiating table. Any scenario where you could see that happening and also in less than an hour? I mean, what is it going to take?
Alex, this is clearly just all political, and we've entered what they call the silly season of politics. We're in the final sprint to the midterm elections. Almost everything coming out of almost every politician's mouth in this next month is going to be political. They're not going to reconvene Congress and suddenly pass a law. The only time that's actually happened that I've seen in the last, I think, 20, if not 50 years, has been the economic collapse of 2008, where they did rush back and actually did do a big law. But it's very, very unusual that they're going to actually do any policy making, and all of this is just really ginning up their base. They're just there to make sure that their bases turn out, and immigration is a great subject for Donald Trump, and that's exactly what he's getting at. He wants all of these people at all these rallies to get out and vote in the midterm elections for candidates who are afraid of these immigrants really destroying their lives.
Look, it's a great topic also for reporters, and I know, Steph, that you write about this latest Caravan in your piece. Big picture here, what all is at stake? Because if more migrants are continuing to head towards the borders and they try to get into the U.S., is there action that you think the administration will definitively take?
Right, the Caravan is just part of what's going on at the border, obviously. It's become a way for the president to, again, address immigration, one of his favorite issues, something that really resonates with his base. But we're also seeing this rush of family immigrants coming across the border and being arrested for crossing illegally. This is something that has infuriated the president, and of course we've seen the reports that top White House officials have been arguing over what to do about this. And what it all boils down to is that there is still a chance for immigrants to apply for asylum, but at this point DHS and HHS, they are overrun with migrants as it is, and it's going to just increase their issues with trying to figure out how do we care for these immigrants, how do we process all of these asylum applications, how do we care for the migrant children who are coming across the border as well. So this is becoming a real crisis for the Trump administration, but it's also providing fuel for Republicans heading into this midterm season.
Jay, when you talk about ginning up the voter turnout, is there a chance that both sides stand to benefit from this, or do you think it is just Republicans?
No, Alex, I think both sides do stand to benefit from this. And so you see on the Donald Trump side, him saying, look, the economy is so great, the economy is roaring, this is why people want to come here illegally, and that's why we have to protect ourselves. We have to build this big wall, we have to make sure that only we benefit from this and keep out all of those crazy rapists and criminals. And that's how he really describes these immigrants who really, I mean, there are 4,000 of them in this caravan, and each one of these speeches is 4,000 people roughly, right? So it's not a huge, I mean, in a country of over 300 million people, 4,000 is obviously not a lot. So in this sense, he really is just using it as a cudgel, but Democrats are also using it as a cudgel in the sense that all of the huge amounts of families being split, the children who are being taken away from their parents, that's deeply unpopular, particularly with women voters. And so they're saying, you know, this is every day that more and more kids coming across the border, and I think there were a record 16,000 people trying to come across the border illegally in the last month. Those are a lot of children that are being separated still from their families, and that's something that is hugely and deeply unpopular with women voters.
Even just beyond the Democratic-Republican divide, Steph, how much of a divide is this topic within the Trump administration itself? Because we had the reports this week of that profanity-laced shouting match between Chief of Staff John Kelly and National Security Advisor John Bolton outside of the Oval Office there on just how to handle this migrant surge.
Well, there are lots of conflicting theories about how to handle these immigration issues. Obviously, as you said, this is why an immigration issue is never solved in an hour. It's vastly complex, and there are lots of people coming to the table with different opinions. Of course, Donald Trump has floated, you know, building a wall and just putting an end to these immigrants coming across the border. He's sort of suggested that he's looking at potentially re-implementing a family separation policy like we saw earlier this year. But again, for Republicans, during that period, we saw some of the lowest approval ratings for the president, so they obviously don't want to get into that again heading into the midterms. So I think the fact that this is such a crucial issue for the president and for this administration and for several White House officials, and at the same time they're going into this midterm season, it creates this very complex situation both politically and policy-wise.
Indeed, Stef Kight and Newton-Small, ladies, thank you so much. Well, it's a little after 10 in the